Hola. ¿Qué tal? Buenas tardes a todos. Lo primero, pediros disculpas porque realmente toda la mesa estaba ya aquí, excepto yo que soy la moderadora. Y bueno, al final es que Madrid es un poco complejo. Bueno, como sabéis, estamos en una mesa, o si supongo que todos los que estáis aquí habéis venido a esta mesa porque sabéis de qué se va a tratar, las buenas prácticas en el sector del transporte. Y para ello, bueno, pues nos han elegido como moderadores de esta mesa. Yo soy la presidenta de una asociación de profesionales de la accesibilidad universal y española. Y bueno, pues vamos a moderar esta mesa, yo creo un poco partiendo de la base de la profesionalización de la accesibilidad en su amplio espectro, en el sentido de la mesa concretamente del transporte. Para ello, pues han venido diferentes ponentes que nos van a dar una visión particular de sus áreas concretas dentro del transporte, de su especialización. Y entonces lo que vamos a hacer es que ellos nos van a presentar sus proyectos o lo que están, sus novedades, lo que están realizando. Y posteriormente vamos a realizar un debate que nos gustaría que fuera lo más abierto posible, por supuesto, que nos hagáis preguntas en el área de la accesibilidad. Y si no, bueno, pues ya con diferentes preguntas un poco que va a haber en este sentido, pues iremos puntualizando sus proyectos. Entonces, para ello os voy a dar paso en este caso a...
Now I'm going to give the floor to my colleague Faustino Cuadrado, who's going to be addressing this audience. He works for Max Factory. This company is in charge of the development of geolocalization systems. He's an IT engineer. He holds a bachelor's degree by the Autónoma University of Madrid. His experience was leading large technology projects and ICT projects, working for Red Eléctrica and Nokia, among others. He was the co-founder of the e-commerce website. He will walk us through his project that's very much focused on the accessibility. I'm going to give the floor to Faustino. Thank you very much for your presentation. As I told you before, I've worked within the ICT sector, within the internet sector, working for different companies, and I just started to work for the accessibility industry. My professor in the Autónoma University of Barcelona suffered a degenerative disease. Mr. George de Bosch, the doctor, he's the head of the accessibility department of the Autónoma University of Barcelona, and he ran an application, a mobile application. So anyone could move around using public transportation. Any given person, because as Jordi always says, if you always think about then design becomes much more efficient. So in Max Factory, we think about everyone, universal accessibility. As a consequence of that IT project, we realized we had to develop tools to help people to become more mobile, to improve mobility of users. And we created a spin-off. And we worked with one of the partners of the University Autónoma of Barcelona. We developed different systems based on geolocation and mobility. Apart from this initial project called Underbus, with a great impact really on the news, because we were named one of the best apps for the city of Barcelona, and we were chosen as one of the leading innovations in the Caterba prizes and awards. Ever since, we've analyzed different areas, and we found a company in Canada, a transport operator, who became aware of the existence of our technology, and they proposed the possibility to use this IT tool there for improving mobility among people with disabilities, allowing all the users to use public transportation. That was back in 2013 when we started to develop the app, and one of the services that we have adapted, and you'll gain an insight into it when we present it. Well, it's fully operational, up and running in Canada. We're running a pilot test in Lyon, France, and we have the very robust support of the Foundation for people with mental disabilities, with the support of the WHO. We include people with memory impairment and elderly people. So this system really is holistic. It allows many users to use it. And that's how we approached the market, really. It is very interesting because we realize that most of us end up working here by accident, or others are firmly convinced. Next to Faustino, we have Hugo Calderón, who works for Altran, a company called Altran. He is a mechanical engineer, I believe, or no, aeronautics engineer, and his background mainly focuses in the aerospace industry. And it is very, very important to see how he has worked developing accessibility projects. Thank you very much, Ana. Thank you. My name is Hugo Calderón, and I'm here to introduce my work at Altran, but also a project that we have been developing for quite some time, which is a challenge called Kilimanjaro 2015 Challenge. This challenge aims at taking a sports person with physical disabilities on their legs to bring them to the top of Kilimanjaro mountain, the highest mountain in Africa, almost 6,000 meters in height. In order to do that, we have developed a bicycle, a tricycle rather, with a three-wheeled bicycle with a carbon fiber, made of carbon fiber. And these mechanisms will allow the sports person to reach the top of the Kilimanjaro. It isn't easy. It is a huge challenge, really. And Altran, my company, is involved in the development and the design of the structure and the mechanisms. As I said before, we started this initiative in 2000, at the beginning of 2015, with Airbus, the company Airbus, and the Institute of Mechanical Engineers of England and the San Carlos Hospital of Madrid. Let me give you a little bit of background of this project. We had to gain an insight into adapted bikes. We carried out a market study as to the state of the art, and we realized that one of the greatest hurdles is that they were very heavy. These bikes were very heavy and very rigid. There had been numerous attempts to reach the top of Kilimanjaro, which failed because of this issue, this problem. After that, in coordination with other companies, we launched this initiative and we embarked on a conceptual design of the bike that terminated before the summer 2015, and we launched the first prototype produced in Airbus facilities, marking the 25th anniversary of the facility in Illescas, which is a key turning point for Airbus, the company. And what we really did in this case was to try to apply innovative ideas, which is really the backbone of what we do in Altran, for different projects. For the aerospace industry, the ICT industry, in order to break barriers and in order to allow people to reach the highest top and the highest mountain in Africa, being accessible for people with disabilities. We launched the first prototype over the summer. We are going to launch the second one. We are currently running some tests in order to guarantee the success of the project and also the security and safety, really, safety for athletes. We had to bear in mind different aspects, mobility, economics, to be able to be as efficient as possible. And currently we are continuing our tests. Our goal today is a very ambitious one, that is to reduce the weight of bikes up to 15 kilos maximum, including everything, wheels, mechanisms and so on. So just to give you an idea, half of the weight of adapted bikes for mountains is what we have as today. So the goal is to reach the top of Kilimanjaro on the 1st of December. We are a team of engineers. Well, by the way, I didn't mention, but I will also take part in this. And apart from myself, there are other mechanics, doctors, technicians, and as well other volunteers who've decided to embark with ourselves on this adventure, really. And thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Bueno, pues creo que es una apuesta muy importante, muy interesante y bueno, es un reto, la verdad.
I think it is a challenge, really. And what I like the most is for you to say, okay, the team is not only about engineering, but the team is composed and made out of other members.
Bueno, los siguientes compañeros que tenemos en mesa, bueno, nos van a presentar también un proyecto dentro del transporte.
So my colleague is going to introduce another tourism-related project. It is a very interesting project developed in Venice, Italy, with gondolas. And Alessandro and Enrico, I believe you have a very wonderful presentation. Faustino is going to make another presentation as well. I think all the presentations have been uploaded to the computer. While Enrico and Faustino introduce their projects, they're Italian. Do you speak Spanish, Enrico, Faustino? Well, I'm going to upload your presentations to the computer, namely your video, because it's most interesting. It's really self-explanatory and it really shows what you're doing. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alessandro and my colleague is Enrico. We are Italian and we are currently developing or almost finalizing the construction of our system to go on the gondole, allowing the possibility to people with disabilities to go on gondole. It is a very innovative system in terms of the idea, because everyone visits Venice, which is a very peculiar city. It's a city with a long history, opening their doors to everybody, and the gondole really represent what the city is about. So for the last 3.5 years we have been developing this system, allowing people to jump on the gondole safely. But we're going to play a very self-explanatory video that we're going to project on the screen. And we take the opportunity to thank you all for listening to our presentation. We would like to thank the ONCE Foundation for granting us the possibility to address you all.
La libertà è quando sei libero di poter andare dove si vuole.
Ho visto troppe volte quell'espressione delusa sulla faccia.
Fino ad oggi non era possibile portare delle persone in carrozzina e in gondola. Qualche volta ne abbiamo imbarcate qualcuno a braccia.
A video has been displayed, but unfortunately the interpreter cannot translate anything because it's in English, in Italian rather.
Nasce per rendere accessibile la gondola anche alle persone che usano la carrozzina. Non è mai stato realizzato un progetto così. È una vera innovazione per Venezia.
It is a real innovation for Venice. Full throttle.
L'accessibilità è un valore di civiltà.
Accessibility is a value of civilization. Living and traveling are necessary to experience the world.
Noi a Village for All abbiamo
At
deciso di
Village for All,
sostenere
we
il
have
progetto
decided to
Gondola
support this
perché
amazing
consente
project
di
because it
realizzare
gives the
tutto questo in
possibility
una
to
città
experience a
magica
magic
come
city
Venezia,
like
e rendere
Venice
magico
and make a
per tutti
trip
la
on a
possibilità di
gondola
farci
magic for all.
Sostenete Gondola
Please support Gondolas for All.
Say your name.
Lali.
Bueno, ahora que le doy el micrófono, voy a poner las presentaciones.
I'm going to upload Hugo and everyone's presentations. Hugo, do you agree? Faustino, would you like me to upload the presentations? Yes, indeed. Okay, then. Let me upload Faustino's PowerPoint first. I don't really want to go over it again because I explained it before, but as I said before, this is an IT project run by Dr. Roche in 2012. The availability for public transportation only on Android and it is that the backbone of everything is universal design, catering for everybody's needs, allowing people to move in a safety fashion around the city, and therefore these app searches the best and optimal routes based on the user's capacities. It guides them throughout the city, and that is paramount. As you can see on the slide, there is an icon for people with disabilities, with visual impairment, which allows them to move around with their dogs if needed. We have received numerous awards, and ever since we decided to start up a company aimed at developing systems for mobility and accessibility. Another important aspect that Jordi always mentions is that we are all disabled somehow when we travel to a new place, when we are not able to communicate ourselves with our own language. So these systems allow everyone, absolutely everyone, to move around and communicate themselves despite their impairments. We have teamed up with a Canadian company that was a primary customer requesting the design for an application for people with disabilities. This app called On the Bus can be found on the Apple Store and Google Play, comprising transportation in Barcelona, all the transportation in Barcelona, and only buses in Madrid. In 2014, we signed the agreement with the government of Quebec, allowing us the possibility to carry out the system for people with disabilities, and also for people with mental disabilities. We are working with the Sant Pere Javer of Barcelona, working for people with mental disabilities, and we have run several tests with them, developing the user interface and also carrying some tests for their outpatients department. We are very fortunate to have the support of the ONCE Foundation. We presented the project and they found it very interesting.
We will sign an agreement with MasFactory and ONCE Foundation soon, and we are the pilot in Leon with a very important transportation institution called MasFactory and Rioris. It's not a very rigid system at all. We've developed a system that, as we said, is based on a mobile solution that's very easy for users to use, with personalization for users and monitoring in a continuous way how that person is proceeding, and if the person has gotten up on the vehicle or not. There's a complete control of or follow-up of the person. And whenever a free seat for people with physical disabilities comes up, the system takes note and offers that seat. And this means that parents can be rest more assured that their children can travel without problems. This is the part of the mobile application. I hope that you can have access to this material. One of the big advantages that it offers is that it represents a big savings in money. adapted seats are 17 euros on average, while the cost of a public ticket are 2 euros. And the impact of all of this is very important for disabled persons and all of society. Well, now we will have a presentation where we'll be able to see images of bicycles. I think it's interesting and very important that we have these images. I'll quickly go over this because obviously what I want to show you are images of the bicycle involved in this project. As I mentioned earlier, we started at the beginning of the year making a field study of what exists in terms of adapted bicycles. And then we began the project. What we did was to take advantage of the experience that Altra had in the field of technology and engineering. In this case, there were several competencies such as design, calculation of structures, manufacturing, all the design. You could say that you can almost see what the bike looks like. We've reached here at this point on the screen a definitive design that you can see. It's a car design. It looks like a tricycle with 2 forward wheels and 1 in the back that's 6 inches. It has all of these things are manufactured in carbon steel. This is an example of the activities we've undertaken, the calculation of structures, including the weights and how the weights affect the person involved in the sports. I'll go quickly. Now, this is the phase of manufacturing. As I said, a lot of this took place in our factory in Illescas in Toledo. These are prototypes which are all manufactured out of composites using an auto key or autoclave type of manufacturing. As you can see, this is the structure which has several panels of carbon fiber that are reinforced, and the seat for the individual that's adjustable, just like all bicycle seats. This is the seat of the first prototype set up, and you can observe the other mechanisms that one has control over. There are pedals that are actioned using one's arms. The position of this individual can't be seen here, but it's a position where one is kneeling forward. The traction comes about from a forward position using 2 chains that go back. And this means that the technological aim is to reduce weight by a big percentage in terms of kilos, up to 50%, 50 kilos. And in Kilimanjaro, we will take the Barandum route starting in December. It's 80 kilometers in distance with an incline of a positive incline of 3,000 meters. We will have different stages. We'll divide it into 10 different stages. And we're working with sports experts to adapt the bicycle to give people the most autonomy possible. And before we finish, I'd like to say that this project, or rather, that this project is not just to meet the challenge of climbing Kilimanjaro, but it's meant to break accessibility barriers. We want everyone to be able to enjoy mountains, whether the mountain be Kilimanjaro or a mountain in the next province. We will place on the web, on the internet, maps with all the routes that these bicycles have been used on, so people can have access to these maps and, if possible, build their own bicycle with the plans. Thank you. Well, once we've seen finally this presentation and its images, I think his explanations given earlier are much clearer for everyone and give us broader information. Now we could start, if you wish, with a sort of debate or colloquium, talking about everything you've heard. Perhaps you have some doubts that we could further clarify. You can ask the speakers any specific questions you might have. Thank you. My question is for Hugo. Regarding hang bikes and a high lesion, I'm tetraplegic, and I've noticed that hand bikes are usually prepared for lower graded lesions. But generally speaking, they're very heavy, and if you include a small motor for inclines, so we don't have to really make efforts that we're not able to make, this means that the bike is very heavy and it's very complicated to put on the brakes. So my question is, aside from these developments, are you also thinking about persons with more severe disabilities? Thank you. Thank you very much for your question. The truth is that the bicycle that we are developing doesn't have a motor. Part of the challenge is that the individual be able, on his or her own, to reach Kilimanjaro without any sort of motorization. And this project has taken us to look at bicycles that are quite heavy, with different mechanisms and materials used that we've seen some materials that are quite rigid, with different sorts of components that are heavy and have really been rather cumbersome. In this case, we have, for the project, we have a series of capabilities and requirements that come from the sports person. Technology has to be able to serve many times, not just for evolving our transportation, but also it has to cover many other purposes. Many times we move out of necessity, and the sector is demanding something that surely will generate more projects, and certainly we will see, and perhaps not now, but in the future, other new mechanisms, other inventions that will allow us to have all sorts of constructions by seeing limitations and adapting technology to overcome these limitations. That's what it's all about, and I think a lot can be done. We have new materials that reduce weights considerably, and this is certainly an advantage. I am convinced that ultimately one must be optimistic about the development of technologies for overcoming accessibility problems. Thank you. I had a question for Faustino and another one for Alessandro. For Faustino, I wanted to know about the application for persons with mental disabilities. My question is, aside from, do you have icons or some type of Google View systems? What other elements exist? And for Alessandro, regarding gondolas, I'd like to know what are the safety measures you implement. How do you make sure that the person in the wheelchair is safe in the gondola? The system in videos is with the person in the gondola, in the wheelchair. And that person has no problems. He's like any other person in the gondola. Things are totally accessible once he's in. And this is something that is very stable. It hardly moves. When we put people in the gondola, six people can fit normally, but in this case, with the new device, there will be 3 people. But once the person is in the gondola in the wheelchair, that person is just as safe as anyone else. He doesn't need anything special, different from others. The application, the interface with the users has improved a lot with the technical experts. One of the big things that's always present in the application is a button up above on the top of the screen that says help. And when we speak with users, they understand that in the case of any incident, they need to click on that button and they will be connected to a telephone number that has already been programmed. The screen contains buttons with icons, and in terms of text, there are some individuals who can read, and these icons with text can explain the route to them. Everything can be configured. We have a map of all the program, and that can be a little distracting, so it's not very useful. Therefore, The instructions that are best followed are a text or a speech, and instructions that are being given are configured in the web application when one programs the route. And depending on what type of transportation you're choosing, what routes you're choosing, etc. And we can also instruct a user to turn when he gets off the means of transportation, or tell him other indications that are very graphic. We can't give information saying, for example, walk 100 meters, because not everyone understands what 100 meters are. We have to be sure that the interface makes the most personalized communication with the user, using icons, images, whatever. I don't know if you have any other questions or not. Yes, you do? Great. Hi. My question is for Faustino also. I'm quite clear on your presentation, but there's one sentence that I'd like to understand better. You said that adapted transportation is very expensive. I don't know what you mean by this. I'm Yolanda. I'm a taxi driver in Madrid. I have a taxi cab that is adapted for disabled persons. Well, when I say rigid and expensive, I'm comparing it to public transportation. Rigid because the frequency is in the sense of the routes and the stops. Very expensive it's the same thing here again. Given the studies undertaken not only in Spain but in Europe and North America, the first studies have been in North America, and the average price, and correct me, Yolanda, if I'm wrong, but the average price of an adapted transportation trip is 17, 18 euros. Public transportation, the simple one-way ticket is 2 euros. And if you have a monthly pass, that's much different. So that's what I was referring to when I said rigid and very expensive, when I was comparing private transportation to public transportation. Of course, those users who can use public transportation, it's great, and there are others who cannot use it no matter what. So, of course, you're a very necessary sector. I wanted to clarify that in Madrid, there's no subsidy for the private sector of transportation. And this money is something that the user has to defray directly. There are no organizations or foundations, associations, institutions that are taking on a defrayal of these costs, only the users. You're correct, and the Spanish market, we've found market niche more quickly in North America or in France, because the administration there is subsidizing a great part of these services. Usually the user pays for the public transportation ticket, but we're not thinking about savings. It's about whether or not I have 1,000 seats, and I can include 100 in public transportation for 100 seats for people with disabilities. But Spain is a much more complex country. And good news for us is the agreement that the ONCE Foundation has just signed. And I think this is one of the only ways we're going to find solutions to these transportation service problems. The ONCE Foundation is really helpful here. We're from Barcelona, and We have an association in Barcelona that pays cost for disabled person, not adapted transportation cost, but some sporadic cost. You know that adapted taxis are highly used, so when we talk to the City Hall, they understand certainly that these are sporadic services that can be justified when it comes to subsidies. Well, I'm sorry that we can't continue with questions. I imagine someone out there has one that will go unasked, but I have to say that it's been a pleasure to moderate this table, especially given the professionals who have joined us here. We've had representation of three important aspects of transportation, public transportation, and how to develop improvements for that sector. One type of transportation that it has been adapted for sports, and of course we all like to do sports, and we're all entitled to do sports. That's one of our basic rights. And another aspect we've looked at here is the adaptation of transportation for tourism with the gondolas. These are things that have been approved and are ongoing. And I hope that I know this is very important and very interesting, and we're all interested to see what the future holds for you. Thank you.